Greetings, beloved family, and thank you all once again for being here with us this evening on Occult Science Radio. I am Curtis Davis, aka the Illuminated One, and tonight we have back with us another Illuminated One. If you were here last week for this brother's lecture, to this day, people are still buzzing about that lecture. Okay, that's why everyone showed up tonight, because they want to hear this divine brother again. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm talking about Brother Sevan. Believe me, this brother is a powerhouse. And every time I bring him on the show, I sit back and I listen and learn, just like everyone else. So I'm going to get started by thanking our sponsor, TON, the Occult Network. That's www.theoccultnetwork.com. And there you will find information that is definitely designed to unlock your consciousness. And the Occult Network also has a Facebook page, also has a YouTube page and a Twitter page. And if you want to keep up with what's going on Occult Science Radio as well, you can find me on Facebook, Curtis Illuminated One Davis. So please come by, become a friend of mine on Facebook, join the Occult Network Facebook page, and also subscribe to us on YouTube and join us on Twitter. And don't forget, when you go to theoccultnetwork.com, click on the events link, and there you will find information about the upcoming Free Your Mind Conference 2, scheduled for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on April 25th, 26th, and 27th. And I will be a featured speaker at that conference, among other powerful speakers, and I'm truly honored to be there, to be among such great minds. So, family, if you want to call in with a question or a comment, please dial 646-649-1987. That's 646-649-1987. And if you have a question or a comment, please press number 1 on your keypad so we can get you on the switchboard and take your wonderful questions and comments. Okay, that's enough of me talking. It's time to welcome back Brother Sevan. Peace, brother. Welcome back.
Thanks, brother. How am I coming through over there? It's just amazing to once again be broadcasting with you. I mean, wow. How you been?
Doing well, doing well. I mean, we're still buzzing from your appearance last week. And tonight we're going to have also a very powerful topic as well, the history of God. And from there, you do the talking from here, brother.
Okay, brother, okay. I just wanted to definitely say wholeness to everyone. And it's definitely an amazing time to be delivering the message. Of course, we're here somewhere around the end of 2012. A lot of people are expecting some major expansion, and they're wondering where it's at. And so, of course, excuse me for the background noise, my goal is 100% to get people to that expansion right before what I would say is just a time in history where we just have this major opportunity to gain our expansion. And this is, of course, these last 2 months of the year, and that's why a lot of the strongest holidays are centered around this time, because the level of energy that's open during these times is massive. And so we have this opportunity to begin to tap into ourselves fully. That's really what the lineup is. Like inside of yourself, you come into this major expansion based on which is really based on your ascension. It's based on you getting to the next level of your experience. Of course, there are many people who've come and gone from Earth, many different kind of beings that have come and gone from Earth. And of course, we're going to look a lot into that today. But the listener really needs to know you need to look into yourself more. We can focus a lot on what's going on in the external reality, and if we know how to do introspection, then we can see how that's inside of us. But if for some reason we haven't made it to that point, and we think that all these external energies are not somewhere resident inside us, then it can be an extremely dualistic, uncomfortable experience on the planet. And so what we really want to do for people today is to put them into a land of major comfort, meaning that it's something that happens internally, but an actual harmony that exists within themselves or balance. We want to get people to that position. So I want people to remember this is a cult network. Of course, Curtis can definitely tell you that there's been a massive level of individuals who've been on this network and who have brought some of the highest levels of knowledge. So because we're in the occult arena, I intend to live up to all the expectations that have been given and put on me and deliver a massive message about this expansive, not only expansive awakening, but also the origins of much of what we believe to be God. And I know that's a major statement. A lot of people would be uncomfortable with that statement right off the bat. The history of God is if man could actually determine God's working as we feel now about how God's elevated state is. But in reality, of course, we're not just gods, we're actually everything. And we're in the level of coming into total realization of that. But until then, we stay with looking up to and duplicating other things besides fully budding or flowering within ourselves. And that has been something that's been trained over time. Humans have been domesticated just like the animals. The chakra system of the human being is generally powered down or inverted, just like the animals. If you can imagine, a cow also has a pineal gland, so what would an activated pineal gland cow be like? People never really go that next level with their thoughts, especially some of these individuals who've already gone into spiritual experiences using substances that come from trees. So this gets us into a major question about who's running Earth, what's going to happen in the future, where do we come from, major questions, excuse me. But what I see also is sometimes we don't know how to ask the right questions. And so thus we get answers that definitely give us a certain level of expansion for that moment, but overall they don't get us to where we need to go. And so I think that's because our understanding of history and her, as I like to call it, there's obviously a genderization of the word history. But when you can get history and her story, and then you can put the two together and make them whole, then this would, in all scientific methods and in all methods of knowledge, allow you to complete your circle. It would actually correct your DNA. Basically, the information that is necessary to turn a complete will and thought, you haven't been provided with. So there's pieces missing in your will of time or your cog of time. And what this has created is an all-out state of being lost because we don't know how to identify our anchor point. So the first thing I want to say is that through this conversation, I want to work the best that I can to stay into the balance. It can get a little dualistic during the conversation because there are clearly forces that are perpetuating a lot of chaos that is harming us and causing a lot of pain for us. And that pain, of course, is then a person generally handles pain by repaying the individual who inflicts the pain with pain back. And this is called fire fighting fire. So what happens at times now is that our chakra system, if you want to know the state that it's been in, it's basically burned up. Our DNA was put into overdrive in duality, which was very dangerous for us. So today we want to clear up this duality so that it's very simple for people. If you're on a dual plane in a binary, you want to go to the next expanse. You need to move out of duality. So tonight, of course, we're going to discuss what goes on in the dualistic plane, like I would say, known as Jacob and Boaz, the feet of the cosmic body and the conflict going on between left and right. But remember that you're on a planet that its planetary symbol is a cross. In addition to that, you're on a planet where there's a day and a night. You're not on a planet where there's just day. So this day and the night dualistic thing that goes on Earth allows there to be beings on the dimension that are exactly opposite to each other. And beings in meeting together come into conflict, and this generates. And some people say, well, what is generating? It's generating energy. So what I want to let people know tonight is that you can tune into a website that we have going now that's going to be showing the images related to this conversation. And that website is godgenes.com. That's GODGENES.com. RabMag.com, godgenes.com. If you're having a hard time with that, you can go to rabmag.com. That's RABMAG.com. And all you're going to get there is you're going to get a screen that's actually showing you, me, here in the AstroQuest studio, of course with AstroQuest equipment, and ready to take this thing to a level where you can actually understand it. Because what I see is happening more than anything is this type of information. It was even known as heresy to have this kind of information, first of all. The spiritual knowledge was always kept a secret. Like, they didn't let you into the rituals and into the temple. You would desecrate it, according to them. They didn't let people that weren't involved in the priesthood see or touch things related to the priesthood and the essence of how to control the planet. Now remember, controlling the planet is also synonymous with controlling yourself. And we're talking about to the greatest degrees of our potential, being able to have full reign over doing what you're really calibrated to do. So this knowledge is not something that they've been passing to individuals freely over history. And in fact, the first ones to have possession of this particular knowledge, which still to us become our parents, were clearly building worlds all the time. And so this is what, if you want to know what is the pursuit of this knowledge and why do so many people want this knowledge and information, and it's because this knowledge and information gives you the ability to create afterlife, a conscious afterlife. And this becomes very important, especially for individuals who are thinking about what happens after you die. Individuals who have a lot of resources and a lot of capability, but they still have that one limitation, which is that at some point they have to pass away. You see it happen all around you. So all of the greatest men and women throughout history sought the answer to that question. Many of them found it. Many of them were not able to come back and deliver that information to you. Many of them believe that it is your duty to find this information. You know, this planet is more like a quest where you must find the reason and purpose that you live in. But I think also that many people, in seeking and going through the internet and finding different individuals that have different levels of information, have found that and have sought out to find that, and that's why they're here today. So I definitely want to say thank you to Ton Network. Curtis, you know, he's been up for a long time. That's just what they say is a quarter horse runs only a short period of time. But one of those full-bred horses runs for a long time. And if you look at the network's been running for so long, the strength of what is necessary to just keep getting up every day and tuning in, finding new people to get on there, just to awaken people is really a massive task, but one that has a great reward. So I can definitely, and you'll see by the end of this conversation, for those that have stored up really good seeds, are they ready to really see the harvest. And what people will understand also with this conversation is even what seeds and harvesting and planting and ecosystems is really all about, and exactly how precious that information is. So while we would want to attain it sometimes, we also have to see that because of its the level of its the respect that goes with it and the level of ability that goes with it, it oftentimes eludes those who are shrouded in darkness. Now, of course, today we have to highlight both components. So there will be a major chunk of this program that has a lot to do with the malevolent forces. There will be another chunk of this program that has to do with the solution. And the major part of the program is to just remember that it's all within. All of what I'm explaining to you is just what is taking place on this planet. What's going on inside of you is so much more expansive. So where I start here, because I've been going through, since we installed the new platform, I've been going through a lot of information as far as pictures, because now I have to line up all the pictures to put into this device so that it can show people the images in real time, which is what I'm doing now. And I've been going through images collected for 5 years. Of course, with the expansion of knowledge that I have now, is totally different when looking back at something that you collected maybe 4 years ago and then understanding the real meaning of it. So this has also allowed me to put this entire thing in somewhat of a chronological order within my mind. Being able to actually just go through segments of time and just check in like you're getting off of a time machine and just peek your head out the door and see, oh, who's ruler? Just yell to someone, who's the ruler? And then I tell you something, you get back to the time machine and then you hit the next knob. Because what's happening is that as you go back through history, all you'll see is the constant back and forth volleying between forces that are attempting to rule the world or training Tiamat. So it's important that we realize right off the bat, because I'm also going to have to etymologically explain the word God, but to understand right off the bat that gods work based on how many people believe in them. So it's very similar to politics. So if a God can do certain things and get people to believe in him or her, then this generates a level of energy within itself. So let us get right into this. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change out a reel here. And I'm going to make that reel loopable, as I call it, just so that it keeps running over and over again. Because as you look through the images that are being played, you'll start to see basically a connection. As I talk, you'll start to see it yourself that, wait a minute, something's actually going on. And that's the point that we want to get to today, because remember, any major awakening within you is actually activating your DNA. Many people desire to activate the DNA. So we have to see that the major awakening is going to come when you have the information, because the information is DNA. So let us go into this. Today I'll show you that the term God is synonymous with king. It has become synonymous with the word Cain and synonymous with the word Cohen, which means priest. And this is why. If you use the word God, it automatically puts you under a Celtic, Druidic, or Gothic system of knowledge. And you would need to go into their language to fully define what the word means when you pronounce it, because it belongs to their language. But you'll find that you don't have to look far, because the correspondence to the word God is actually within the Hebrew correspondence to the word Yod. As you can see, it's basically the same. In English, the G, the Y, the I, and the J are all interchangeable. And you can find this out by just writing some words that contain those letters, and then start switching out the letters. And you'll see that these letters are interchangeable. So right off the bat, you have to realize that people that are even using the name God that don't understand its interpretation, the joke would be on them anyway. Because when you use a vibration and then determine that that vibration is your highest vibration, meaning what you think is the highest thing, and when you say it, you send a signal to that, you ping that. How you experience life is going to be based on that. Your idea of what the Most High is shapes, molds, and fashions you. So where we're at with this is that we're now starting to see that when we look into the period of time that we've had here on earth, and the individuals that have been here on earth, if we want to look at our immediate segment, we have to say, who was the original human template that was here? And here's why I use the word template. It's a template because you keep getting a continuous replication of the same thing. And this is 2 arms, 2 legs ahead. 2 arms, 2 legs ahead. Where does that template come from? So when we look back into the past and we get to the ancestors that we can really identify, we find an elongated skull ancestor, meaning an ancestor that chose to use a larger cranium when it visited this planet. Now, without getting into the geometry of these kind of larger craniums, I'll just say that it has an excessive memory, but not just a memory how we think of memory, but a memory through pineal or crystalline memory. What the brain does is the brain stores information and then compresses information. And then once it is able to compress that information enough, it then stores it in the crystal that you call the pineal gland. The pineal gland then further collapses it into light. This is how the records are stored, or what they call the astral records of yourself. So to understand the ancestors is to know that the language and the abilities and the way that they moved when they arrived on this planet is totally different than what you see today. Their agendas, meaning what they were actually doing here, was completely objective driven. No one was taking their time, and because there was no such thing as time. So where this takes us is this takes us into seeing that obviously our parents were here before. And where we are now is we are being managed or shepherded by none other than our brothers and sisters, but not our parents. I mean, our parents seed planets and then move on to other planets and keep seeding. They're pro-life. They don't have time to sit back and get into doom and gloom about the whole death phase, and they keep moving. They say that if you ever want to reach the height of yourself, just become active. So now what we're going to begin to see here is that the Mayans who recorded the crystal skull, the Egyptians who recorded Akhenaten with the elongated skull, were reporting a time in history where the Sumerians, in a vast that is almost lost, which you'll see here, I'm going to source it now, but a vast that is almost lost, that there was an arrival here on this planet by the template of humanity with elongated skull. And these beings were known to arrive by several vehicles, and this is why they were always given wings. That they arrived, the term is the arrival, excuse me. This arrival of the Shams, as it's called, or Shem, which means the name, appears to be an actual occurrence in the history of humanity. That there were some advanced beings here. Now, right off the bat, if you can just start to imagine that, you would see that obviously that there would be some type of relationship between these beings and whatever they're creating. Meaning that there has to be some type of connection between us here and them. And the reason why I'm speaking very elementary, at least in the beginning of this conversation, because I'm also queuing up some photos also, but the reason why I'm talking elementary is because at this point, it's going to be of the greatest or utmost necessity that you just get the message clearly. It's not for me to run around sanctimonious and scream for you. It's about you to actually absorb this information so that you know what you need to do next. Now, here I'm sourcing a picture that many have seen. It's directly out of Egypt, of course. It's supposed to be a picture of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. And their interaction with what appears to be smaller human beings that are similar to their children. And before I get into alien stories or anything of that nature, I just want you to simply see it for what it is. That the beings that arrived here had children, and they cared for those children and raised those children up until a certain point where they didn't need them anymore. This is the same thing that you do with your children if you have them. You teach them everything that you can, and then once they even reach a certain age, it's time for them to go. So they leave. You don't leave. Notice also that there's a passing going on from the masculine forces to the feminine forces. People don't think that the babies on this planet, they come from the male first. That's the seed. And then it comes out of the female next. So the baby's going through several stages of metamorphosis. So these are what I know as organic wombs. Meaning this is organic, some people like to call it technology. But our ancestors were organically feeding themselves across worlds. So I'm using the imagery. I'm not necessarily saying that this is the truth, these are the people. I'm just showing you from the ancient times of a concept that I know is, and I know that also that the troubles that we face in this world now from opposing forces, those opposing forces are none other than brothers and sisters, other spirits. Some people think when I say brothers and sisters, I'm just saying, just humans. No, I'm talking about other spirits that were generated also from the same source. So what is this source? Now we get into the word God. Now the word God, which corresponds to the Hebrew word God, means tin and hand. The symbol itself is that of a flame. So they say to understand the Father principle, which of course also begins with S, is to understand that fire always arises through conflict, meaning that to make fire, you have to strike either two objects together, strike another object together, make a spark. You have to mix two completely explosive chemicals together that don't interact well. They explode, create fire. So every way that fire is created, even from the flicking of the lighter and the strike of a match, is through a conflict or combustion. They say in this you can get an idea of the masculine forces. This is read straight from the ancient books, that the Father principle is like fire. So thus all of the rules and all the guidelines and all the leash and all of everything beside the flow of water is what the masculine principle has begun to stand for through the word God. And the reason is fire is a very brutal teacher. If anyone's ever put their hand in fire, they thought about it next time they put their hands in fire. It's a pain that teaches you immediately why you should or should not do something. So I tell you that there are on your planet that have now decided to embody that concept. Meaning personally, they have decided to become the component that is the fire. So as I'm out this whole dissertation, which I haven't even began, by the way, still realize that the reason why it's God and all the beings that you see that are the hosts of God or that are always in conflict is because they are fire beings. Because ago, they chose to take the fire as their principle of the way they were going to be. Now, I also want to discuss very briefly consecration, meaning when someone consecrates their child to a god. And some people say, oh yeah, those things are gone. That people are not doing that anymore. That was a long time ago. Heathenism, paganism. When you sprinkle a child, this is consecrating to the rain god. When you baptize a child, this is consecrating to Mary or the ocean or Mars. When you pass the child through fire, which is still done in Africa, they're not burning the child, they pass the child through fire really fast. This is consecration to Jah or Yah. So we have to get it very clear that the ancient beings that we're calling gods are very similar to the principle of how the planet was first created. And if you want to get a good glimpse of how the planet created, go to BBC or one of these National Geographics. Let them take you back a few 100 billion years. This thing was one hot molten core. Then the next stage it froze over completely. First stage, hot fire helios. Second stage, freezing ISIS south. Next stage, And it keeps corresponding to all of the ENIAC or deities that we are calling God are really also segments of time. So remember, some are still stuck in the molten fire mode, Vulcan, and then some are in the ice queen mode, like Gaga and Minaj. And many are in the ocean phase, going with the flow, namaste, not even awake, the Neptunian. So what happens is we have to wake up to realize that why we're viewing Earth and why we're experiencing Earth, we have to be aware of not falling asleep. And that we have to still realize that all of this that is going on has the potential to enshroud you in it, and then that darkness makes you go to sleep. That's why when you turn off the light, it's easier to sleep than full sunlight in your face. The darkness or ignorance creates sleep. So this means that if you don't know anything about the real principles that are here on this planet, then you would be asleep. So this is the first level, I say to most people, is ask yourself, if you're truly awake, the first thing you should have said when you woke up is, how long have I been asleep? Because what you see going on clearly will warrant your attention. Whether you're choosing to pay attention to it or not is highly up to you. And of course, the reality is completely designed for you not to know any of what we're about to talk about. So again, understand the generative principles or the elementals, the stages in which the planet was gone through when it was terraforming. Understand that those energies are the core energies and the foundations and the building blocks of things. So if an individual thousands or billions of aeons over the timeline chooses to bring out a primordial energy into.
And we are back, family. Had a slight technical difficulty there, but we are back with Brother Sevan. Are you there, brother?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
All right, please continue.
Okay, so again, I just want to let everyone know that there is, of course, clear recordings of the conversation that we have for everyone after the show, just in case you're having a connection problem. So I just, again, want to let everyone know that you won't miss out on anything. You'll actually get this. You can get it later if you're having an issue or if we drop out for whatever reason. Okay, so to go ahead and pick up with this, because I really start getting into the bulk of the message. Like I'm going to need to take a slight break at least the top of the hour, just so I can grab some water and make sure the air conditioner is on, because it's getting a little hot in the studio with the equipment on.
Not a problem, brother. Not a problem.
Like sometimes, you're over here, you're talking, it's like monotone, and you're trying to go through a dissertation with people and explain to them what's going on. But realistically, I just want to tell people, look, this isn't real. Like, it took me 5 years of constantly having to take in a lot of information and to go through massive experiences to get to this level of knowledge. So it's just not something that you just tomorrow you could, even though I would like to write one that explains everything to you. There's just experience that you're having in life that matches up to what I'm explaining today. You'll be able to map out certain you came in contact with, especially because all this stuff is inside of you. But still realize the venture itself and the effort, you don't see a lot of people standing up to figuring it out. You just see a lot of people just joining people that think that they figured it out. And I'll say that again, you see a lot of people joining organizations, things with people that they count to have it figured out for them. It's the same thing all over again, become the crutch or the problem with our reality, which is when we depend on gods and other beings and other angels. Anything beside our oversoul completely pull this off, then there is no pulling off. There's only us being deceived, that all these beings deceivers think that we were going to gain something that we didn't work for. The universe was doing the balancing. Again, unbalanced, broken scales. It's the perfected. I create for before time and in timelessness against fallacy us understanding numbers and the things that nature is really showing us, and that inside they're really showing us. So again, just be really let me just get finish. Just want people to see themselves in the moment, take a deep breath, say to yourself, okay, look, I'm just going to open my mind to see exactly why, and then let me hear what this is really all about. And then that way you can receive the part of what you need to receive. And so, because I think everyone is hearing it, especially in the message. So we go with the blueprint of God, and we understand that the first arrived here contained a language, and they spoke that language to their children. We speak the language we know to our children. That the children were here on earth in possession of a language that could actually create things. The only thing that God are into doing is creating. So now, I'll take everything from there. So what's been happening here on this is that the planet has gone through a constant degradation. It's at a level. We accept that the king, or a king over us, or a God over us, it put us in a feedback loop, or basically makes us. And how can I say it? It makes highly dependent and highly degenerate. Our chance to degenerate over time if they don't lift weights, if they don't do what spirits are supposed to do. If we count on something else to do it for us, then we lose spiritual strength. So how this worked before is that the first fathers and mothers that were here on the planet actually were with their children. And they, in essence, shepherded all of the different sprang forth from them. So if you imagine something like, which has a very high population, you can imagine the mothers and fathers of a country like India. As those tribes begin to grow, and of course everything that is subject to physicality will pass away, meaning that people would live for 400 or 500 years, but still eventually pass off the earth. That as populations were increasing, you had the delegation of spiritual knowledge being passed into the hands of the sons. And the only thing that I just am trying to drive home here for people is to see that the initial knowledge was passed into the hands of caretakers. And those beings that have that knowledge are now called the Innerversity and the Universe and all that. They're highly expanded. So what we do knowledge is going to be up. So you can obviously see that when we were in a small, it was very for everyone to enjoy the knowledge and enjoy the abundance that creation. But as things began to grow, you also read in the Old Testament, as things began to populate, you had quarrels among brothers and sisters. And you then had time for things to be divided.
Yeah, let me jump in for a minute. Let me jump in for a minute here, brother. We're having some sound problems with your microphone again. We're just going to take a quick break to see if we could rectify this issue. Okay, family, we will be right back. And we are back, family. We deeply apologize for the technical difficulties, but hopefully we have those rectified now. Brother Sevan, please continue.
Okay. Hopefully everyone can hear me clearly now. We did have a little bit of technical difficulties. And of course, we would love to make it super clear for you. So I went ahead and put it in to the broadcast also, just so that we have the proper bandwidth that's associated with, having a good call. So I'm going to go ahead and end that for people who are watching it and just go ahead and carry the message, verbally. So I am ending the live stream just for those that did log into that. Okay, so basically, again, to continue where we really left off and to really expand through this is that you just have to understand that once the expansion began and once it began to multiply, then different people sprang up as leaders. And so how this would work is that if one person is the elder of the tribe, and they are not only carrying the spiritual tradition as far as the priesthood is concerned, but also the knowledge and the information. That information and knowledge is continuously passed from son to son to son. So what happens is, from daughter to daughter. And so what happens is that if at any point there's a break in that information, meaning that even as a person from a specific race, if you don't have the information of your ancestors, then there's also going to be a complete disconnection from who you really are. And so you have to see, and again, what I'm just trying to show people is that there has been already a routing and a colonization that has taken place with every single race. And where this has left them, except for many of the races, like China and India, but many of those people have not been colonized. But with the Western culture and Western people, especially the ones who are heading up many of these religious systems, such as Christianity and many of the Western religions, have been colonized already. So the actual genes that are inside of them correspond to many different tribes and many different countries. And so what we have happening is, if you notice in the Bible, it talks about there was a selling of humans to other kings, meaning that the God of the Bible actually says that he will sell you into captivity, and if you disappoint him. So where this kind of behavior comes from is that once the world fell into the hands of the kings or the sons and the daughters of the creators, and it began to deteriorate over time, what happened is that there was a level of dominance that was over every single land so heavy that if you did not follow the laws and the rules and the decrees of the individuals known as the gods and the kings and the priests, then you would be killed. So people have to see that our product and attachment to this system, this belief system, has been going on for multiple lifetimes, and that means that we feel an inclination towards it. Meaning that in the spiritual arena or in the religious arena, people get very offended when someone talks about their God. And the interesting thing is that when a human being is fighting or protecting a God, or fighting with a God, then what they're truly doing is fighting against something that is keeping them in the same reality. And so I do have to take a moment, though. I kind of got thrown off just a little bit with the conversation, and as far as our technical difficulties. So I'm looking through my notes and I'm like, okay, where are we at with this? But what I'm really trying to explain to people, because I've been taking in a lot of information for like the past 2 or 3 days, that I've been able to map out completely that when we began to be ruled by kings who are no different than our rulers today, who ride around in the fancy cars or the fancy chariots, and who have a certain level of pizzazz or something that we believe that they have that will enhance us, then we start to wander after them and want to be like them. So what you had happening is, in the past, the same thing. You had people that were chicken herders, goat herders, and then they see the king come by in the huge chariot with the retinue and the entourage. This is no different than someone out at the club and then seeing some star roll up in the Ferrari with the girls, and then the person wants to be like the star. They even name it properly. So I want us to see that there will be a whole slew of problems when you look outside for something that you need to find inside. If you set up something as your God beside the temple inside of yourself. So as we go through time, we find that there has been kings or organization, or they used to call Sumer, which is, of course, the Sumerian culture. They call it the land of the civilized kings, meaning that they're already under civilization in a rules, the decrees, Hammurabi's code, commandments, religions, that of course none of them follow, but they give them to everyone else so it can lower their frequency. This makes them higher than the people that they're mastering over. So when you're looking into the first civilizations, as you see with Sumer or Babylon, what we have is an entity that came to life known as, some call him Azazel, some call him Semyaza, some call him Nimrod, some call him Cain. There are many names, some call him Yahweh, externalized. There are many different terms for the same, what is really a massive energy. Even a way that we can choose to be, to embody that energy. If we want to be jealous, if we want to go into quarrels, if we want to cause hatred and confusion, if we want to take others' lands, if we want to imprison people, if we want to do that, then we have found a home with these kinds of beings, the king. So we have to see every single day all of our actions, and that's what we're going to be itemizing during this conversation also, but all of our actions that lead to our connection with what is now known fully, especially in many of the esoteric circles, as the fallen angels. Now, the fallen angel situation is very serious. It's not something that should be overlooked. And the reason is because there's a heavy level in every occult circle and every brotherhood. If anyone's ever gone into it, then they know what I'm talking about. That there's a level of evocation that takes place utilizing the holy words that were parts, again, of the ancient language. So, to really understand this, there are groups of individuals that are now cycling the ancient knowledge about how to contact other energies and other spirits from the timeline, but mainly one part of the timeline. There's a mystery to a lot of people. The Sumerian entities became, like Baal and Nimrod, became known as the lords of the land, or the Baalim. They also became known as the cherubim, and this is why on the gates of Babylon you see the cherubim, because that's them. They were also known as shields by the Arabs, meaning they would be able to invoke or evoke these beings, and they would protect them. You see, this is the same behavior that goes on with the children of Israel coming out of Israel. They're being led or shepherded by God. God is with them, but they can't see God's face. They can see God's other parts, but not His face. There's a reason for this also, because if they saw the face of the God, they would realize its true origin. That's why it never showed its face. But there has been a being walking around Earth with an immense level of knowledge and understanding about the symbol that I was talking about the last show when I was on here, which is the pentagram. Now, to understand the pentagram as known as the R sign would be to unravel the mystery of Egypt. Because the pentagram itself is a symbol of Sirius. And unfortunately, I was unable to source the pictures today because of our internet situation, but I will have all this information, and we'll bring it out at some point this week. But Sirius is known as the dog star, or Big Five. And the Sirius is also known as the dark sun, the sun behind the sun. So the biggest mystery within all these mystery schools is that they have been in a pact and in contact with a fallen angel through the constellation of Sirius. Now, we have to get into the details.
It's 9 o'clock.
The symbolism that becomes used later on as for God is an axe. And that axe was known as being the symbol because it could cut down family trees. And this is the dissension that has taken place within the races of people. And the reason is because the gods or the kings need humans because they are far more better than animals and livestock and all these things. And there's a reason why, because if you can get a human being to worship and to praise you, then the human being will bring you their children even. They'll bring you livestock. They'll bring you all of the other things, the jewels. They'll bring you your ideas. This is the same thing that's happening in the world today, by the way. Notice how many people only aspire to be knighted by the Queen. So they'll bring her these Nobel-like ideas or these major accomplishments through famine in other countries. And they'll bring it to her like, here, see what I've done. Praise, give me some recognition just for a moment. And the Queen looks over and says, oh, I've knighted you. So this behavior that we're talking about here, about how the humans have been playing themselves to the gods, is still going on now, but has been going on especially in the ancient times. This is one of the first moments in our time segment that we've actually had an opportunity to tune into something else besides what they want us to tune into. So while many people are kicking the United States under the carpet, they need to realize the United States was actually the first place where you could become who you wanted to be. Because before then, you would get the religions that were known as the Eastern traditions. Now, let us define the Eastern traditions and the traditions under the deity known as Allah and the symbols that are being used and associated with that deity, which are the pentagram and the crescent moon. Now, anyone who has verified that within Islam that there is a power that with magical inscriptions in Arabic and certain words in Arabic that the jinn obey or the jinn flee, this is the deeper occultism, have stumbled upon the book maybe of algebra, which is where we get the word algebra. Now, this connection is major because the actual knowledge of numbers, which also is summed up by the pentagram, comes from the Arab culture, not from the Western culture. So now you start to get a glimpse of what Disney was doing in those in the mystic order of the Shrine have been doing when they went into the Eastern teachings, learned how to summon genies, what in English comes out as a genius, meaning a spirit that can tell you things. And then brought the biggest one of them all, who's algebra. If you see the Donald Duck and Math Magic Land, you get the real point of it. To basically introduce a knowledge into the Western world that was completely foreign to it. So let me explain to you how this works. In the ancient traditions, if you're in the village, you know how the spiritual system works. But in the United States, there was a whole group of people who were removed completely from the spiritual system, to then be later on introduced to the system as if it was brand new. And of course, not even knowing how to use the system at all. And this is, of course, the system of the pentagram. It's all on the flag. It's on many flags in this world. And because it is the symbol of aristocracy, it is the symbol of the Aryan, which again is a blue person, fire beings. So the R sign is also connected to Sirius because it's known as the blazing star. Some people think that that's Lucifer or Venus, but really there's a network of planets. The Arabs already had it in their book that it was 7 planets that were even in construction, that had embedded themselves into the construction of the entity that they created, which was a physical entity. Meaning that the creation of the individuals here on the planet, on a physical level, their physical bodies also possess a soul force. So you have now multiple spirits in the individual's body. But the animalistic nature is what is controlled by these so-called controllers the most. Because you have to ask yourself, would you populate if it didn't feel good? Would you have sex or sexual intercourse if it did not feel good? And then, if it didn't, you would only see it as reproduction, the ability to make another one so we could keep going. You wouldn't see it as you see it now. So that's where this knowledge of who algebra, also Azazel, and many multiple names, basically created language, actually resides at the most. See, what I'm actually having to uncover now is how, for instance, people are speaking Druid right now. So in essence, you've become somewhat of a druid. Because people have understood now the knowledge of the inverted pentagram, upside down Venus, Sirius, the Syrian mysteries, etc., Osiris, which is not green in any of the ancient teachings, but a black man, a melanin dominant. Bees, who's short, but still kept in even the glyphs of Horus, right on top of Horus. So understanding these ancient traditions of the foundation of where we really came from, so you can actually watch the degeneration cycle. How all you see happening is people start to become oppressed. It's the same thing that's happening now. A new leader rises up, says that he can accomplish certain things. People start to rally behind the new leader. The new leader gets up enough forces and power to overthrow the old leaders. Maybe there's peace for a time, especially if that new leader is a really good leader. But then it has to be passed to someone, the leadership. So if it's not passed to the right person, it deteriorates again. Now, what the priesthood has done is they set up in all quadrants of the world to where when real power is passed, it passed into the hands of individuals who know how to keep the system hidden. The whole reason of why most of what I'm talking about sounds foreign to people is because it is hidden. They keep you distracted from realizing that they're evoking around the clock with pentagram Azazel and all the hosts of entities that exist with our urges and passions. Because our urges and passions often bring us into conflict. It brings us into conflict with one another. Our emotions, which they show you are really controlled by the moon, bring you into conflict at times. So, in reality, what we're doing is, while we're talking about this, we're pulling apart exactly how the body or our vehicle, our chariot, is really put together. And hopefully as we're breaking this down, it all starts to really click on, okay, I understand now that, yeah, it's the external conflict. Because you have to ask yourself, how long can you stay in duality anyway? 3 more lifetimes? 4 more lifetimes? When will it become difficult for you to deal with pain, suffering, bickering, fighting, choosing, all signs of imbalance? So you can see how you should really be joyous, because now all it means is once you come back into balance, you will be emancipated from this reality. Meaning it will cease to become distorted. You won't see it for an illusion. You'll see it for exactly what it is, and you'll know what to do. There is an idea of a beautiful life here that doesn't end with heavy karmic ties and you attached to things that you don't even understand. Now, let us also realize that, and I have to, again, lead through this conversation again to categorize these names properly, but when it comes to the difference between God and giants, the giants actually came before the gods. See, the etymology behind the word Yod is a dualistic being. It's the number 10. It's a fire god, Dios, as they call it. So that whole phase of conflict, there's one that precedes that. So when we see the phases that the evolution is really going through, again, that's when we see this phase and this evolution within us. So now, I want to also talk about very briefly that the first plowers of this planet, because the status of the Aryan, or the one that carries the pentagram, is a plower. Meaning an individual who knows the knowledge of how to plan and to reap and things of this nature. And this becomes important because that knowledge was given to man by what is just hidden in text as the tree. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. When you start going into creating, you have to know these different levels of knowledge. Knowledge now has to be split up. So this is the knowledge of good and evil. So this is why in all ancient traditions, like I talked about before, the giants, or the Nephilim, were connected to the trees. And that the knowledge and the information that they gained about especially how to create came from the trees. The acacia, which rolls into Castiel and rolls into the angel Saturn, who's also Solomon. When you look deep into this text, you see that the people have been carrying this knowledge that they got from what used to be known in the ancient times as the Hag in their tradition. As you said, the Kohen Haggadol, which means that a Hag is an old woman or a witch, one who has gone past the phases of life and now has withdrawn into nature to figure out its mysteries. So most cultures were being advised by none other than the ancient shamana. The women managed the planet through a psychic connection that still exists with them, but has also been connected now to the moon, if you understand what that really means as we get into this conversation and begin to talk about Nanar, sin, and basically the Sumerian fallen angels. Now, fallen means, or lowered is really the term, it just means lowered, meaning brought down. That's why I said it came from the sky. So they could live on the moon and still, or live in the air and still be considered as higher than individuals that are living on the surface, but not as expansive as individuals who are in inner standing at all. When you're going in a rocket, in a space shuttle, out into space, you're heading to where the archons or the inorganic beings are. Everything out there is external. It's the external world. You may even come upon a planet with life and cars and all sorts of stuff. But that's not the exit. The exit, that's actually to get deeper into it. The exit is within. You have to go back inside, into the Innerverse. So you can see that right off the bat. The only thing that the priests and the kings and the gods began to sell is you can have a better life next life. But this life, I need you to make my life a better life. It's, again, the same thing that we're doing today. You spend your time worshiping and praising me. You spend your precious time of not learning knowledge, information. You just believe in this one book. You don't even step outside the belief system. So all of this begins to pervade now on the person, mainly in their main area, which is their spiritual area. This is why spiritual knowledge is so confused. But there's a perpetuator of this. So when we look into the perpetuator, we'll see, again, this inverted pentagram. And then when we connect that, we find that that is actually the symbol of the R sign or the aristocracy. We'll find that who the aristocracy are is that you can't, quote unquote, talk to God, just like you can't talk to Tom Cruise. Someone can maybe carry the message for you. And this is, of course, the inception of more angels and more go-betweens between you and self. So what happens here also is that we can see this very clearly, that the root of where this is coming from is actually us. It's every decision that we choose to make every time that we go outside of ourselves. It doesn't mean that you're not supposed to go outside, just be like you staying in the house all day. But it means that when you go out there, the decisions that you make, the spiritual connections that you make, the spirits that you meet, make a difference. And this is why the Hollywood has lined itself up completely like fallen stars. But notice, just on a simple test, the kind of energy that you get from them. Like generally when a person looks, they admire a star and a star appears on the stage, generally there's a slight jealousy going on. The energies that are associated with these stars are actually the energy that's associated with fallen energy. Now, if it's not even just your inclination and what you're thinking, it's also what they're talking about. So the wandering after the fallen angels is happening through Hollywood and the stars. But even deeper than that, in the occult, the name of the energies that they want to bring in that are aligned with these malevolent forces are used, the tones and the vibrations, and then the person is infused with that energy to act out the as below nature of that fallen star or energy that they're radiating. You have individuals Obviously, you could see that Liar Cohen, who brought in individuals such as Jay-Z and major individuals into the industry. Cohen means priest. CNN means Canaan. We got into deeper. Again, the dog star is Sirius. So why most people are confused with Egyptian knowledge and still seeing Sirius as something else like Osiris or something of this nature, they don't realize that it's actually the covenant, especially by way of Venus. This is why there's the Lord and the Lady. The covenant of the Canaan. The Canaan then becomes Cain, the ruler over the people. He's playing the role of God as God's go-between. I think the king is in divine. They always say the king is in divine relationship to the God. So, but wait a minute, who are you calling king though? Is there a king over our world? Yes, there is. When you go into England and you look at the crest of the England seal, you'll notice that right in the middle there's a huge crown. If you ever took a chance to look at it, and I will definitely be building on this message again Saturday on the AstroQuest, or Sunday on the AstroQuest, but you'll see that crown is actually on the top of a huge head of a horned god. Then when you go into Arabia, you'll find out that not only was the currency the cattle, but the symbol of the horned god, which is the original symbol of the plow, they said that the pentagram was never introduced right side up when it first came into inception. It was introduced upside down because it was known also as the plow sign. Because you could take the top edges and then the point will poke down in the ground and then the cows would start to till the land. So the same behavior of civilized kings, meaning we're coming in to civilize and domesticate you. And this is also why you see a lot of that in the Sumerian paintings, that them taming these animals and beasts, which they see us as because we keep acting out in animalistic natures that they're perpetuating. This basically becomes what I call the endless knot. They perpetuate you to do things that actually keep you here. That's in the beginning of the conversation. So as you follow this God throughout history, you find that anyone who follows it and comes into disagreement or whatever, it sells them off to other gods. Now this is like if your father does not care about you enough, your actual physical father doesn't care about you enough, it just sells you off to another person that's buying people. Now, this story also is very similar to how many of those that resided in Africa and Kemet were sold by the king that was disgruntled with those people. You also see images of the eyes being poked out. You see an extreme level of anger coming from the king because we start to see move in very fast kings that are possessed by what later on became known as Set, but in actuality what the people saw as nighttime, or basically the king became possessed. Now let me explain to you how this would really work. If anyone started to control things and to rule over things, then they would always be, how can I put it? There will always be things trying to get in contact with them. This is what the Arabs write about in the books. If you ever come into a large level of power, then immediately there becomes things that try to communicate with you and try to get you to do things and to act a certain way. And so this is why also, for those who end up wanting to become king and master, still to realize that you're signing up for a major test. Because all the time you're tested to see if you're going to use your energy and use your power to do something that you're not supposed to be doing. So this is why there became so many kings that are still here on earth, even in spiritual form, that fell under the sway of the genius, or the genie. And that's why they said, I think the Christians still in case they would never communicate with the devil because he can convince you. So what they're basically saying is that these are very convincing beings. But overall, all of what they say they can do, they never deliver on. And this is their call sign or their call tag. And we know that the root of it is that if we depend on anyone to do something for us, we'll be waiting for a long time. Like there's got to be some kind of motive in it for the other person. If we start doing things for ourselves, that's the best way to start doing things for each other. Then once you start to get an abundance of this energy, and then you can start distributing to individuals as you continue your quest. But to make it very simple to people, the energy transfer that goes on. Now, let me explain to you again that these forces, which are very foreign to most people, have their root, of course, in the tree of Yggdrasil, but are also druids. It's basically like if you see the guy with the white beard on Harry Potter, how he dresses and his relationship to the Elven King. If you look at the Lord of the Rings and you see the individuals that are involved there, what you get is you get not a fairy tale, but a story of people that we haven't even began to research. Meaning many people, especially that are not their race, don't research their culture. But who do you think are really sitting back off in those castles? Some people think that they're going to find these kind of energies and entities running around in the mall or in Hollywood. What they say about these entities or fallen ones is that they keep themselves in enclosed gardens. This is like the configuration of Atlantis. It was several layers. And that's why Atlantis was the only demise of Atlantis had to be spiritual, because if it was ever physical, you could not penetrate the center island to get to the king. They set themselves up in groves, which were really, on the spiritual level, hosts, or multiple layers of protection between them and anyone attempting to attack them. You see, London also has this same configuration. It's a grove within a grove within a grove. And then there's another key point that is there that is responsible for the bringing in of energies from this dimension that these energies reside on into this one, called a hinge. This is what they call the hinges, stone hinge. What is the hinge for? On a door. What are these gates for? It's the gateway. The gateway is the most important because that's what leads to the other world. So the gateways and the hinges is what these energies have control over. And again, I'm saying that I'm not able to source images, but the knowledge that I was able to pull, especially from one of the ancient books of Athenius Kircher, show that they put this double-headed bird, which is another one of their marks, over and projected it over the entire world to lower consciousness. Learning the power of how to take the sun's energy and to be able to refract it and to alter it so that it creates illusions. Like this is the key to the illusion is through optics or through mirrors and lights. Notice how if you take a huge magnifying glass and you put it in front of the sun, it'll emit a huge amount of energy of heat. So if you can convert that heat into power, you have a generator. This was already known by them, a powerful generator. But now also know that the gods worship the sun too. Some people would see God as the sun. That's why this misdefinition of the sun, of God, the word God, is really doing a big work on people because God is fire. It's a product of the sun. So they see God as the sun. So now we get into some of the specific beings that are lords. Now notice, of course, Jesus is a lord, but even in Britain, there are individuals still called lords to this day. So what you had is many of the first lords were named directly after the animals that they represent. So Horus is, or he bought the horse. There's, of course, a covenant between a horse. A horse, if you understand even the dog, you'll see that the dog is really a domesticated horse. It's taken down off of another structure. But to understand the horse, or what they call manes, the knight's mare, their mare also means a horse. So to see this connection with history, as I said last year, you can follow history's gods through its currency. The horse became a symbol once entering into Egypt when Horus, who was their savior at that period of time, brought to them the knowledge of how to domesticate a horse and to use a horse. It's about to expand the empire. It's like creating cars at that point. Likewise, those Syrians, which were normally depicted as smaller men, but introducing the domestication of the cow, originally coming out of Upper Egypt. Understanding also the covenants. Like you see, Menelik is another covenant and is a horned, when depicted, is a horned being. Moses is horned. Bacchus is horned. Pan is horned. You see an entire group of beings known as the hidden ones. Satire is the name, or satire, clothing that allows them to be disguised from everyone else. Now, one of the massive parts of the good news is that the only thing that keeps you here is the knowledge of not knowing how to expand. And when I mean here, I don't mean necessarily going anywhere. I mean in the frequency of deactivation. The only thing that keeps you here, because you are made in an exact image of the Creator, not God. That's why you have to understand the terminology. You're made in the image of the Creator. What God is trying to do is to keep you from seeing that by standing in between you and the Creator. So this is why all religions they talk about that they magnify, the deities involved, that we magnify God. There's always a go-between. So this is what has to end. So to bring this also into another level, if you want to understand how land have taken a drastic change, the area that we're calling Upper Egypt most of that area was sold during the time of a famine. Like these are parts of the record that people just don't see and don't admit and wonder why the land went into great poverty and why there was a land of why there became a great level of degradation. If you go into Nubia now, you see it's completely desolated because of the famine. So you have to realize that when those lands started going into famine, because they're in famine now, most of all that was bought up by the Cassians and the Hittites. The Cassians and the Hittites traded these people grain, which these were masters of grain, barley. They bought the barley, they bought the wheat. This is why Isis as the wheat goddess, Saturn is the barley goddess. And they bought this to them. Now, here's the interesting thing. You can have a lot of stuff. You can be bezeled out, as they call it, Rolexes and everything. But if something happens with the food supply, you'll be surprised how fast you get rid of the watch for a dinner. So what you had happening is lands were completely sold and raised, as they call it, burn it down to cultivate the land to get ready to grow something that the king really wants. Take all the people and put them into captivity and then put them to work. So the only thing that we're dealing with modern society is that it's been able to actually cloak that, which is even more dangerous. Because what happens is you cannot summon the force and the will inside of you that's necessary to overthrow this if you don't, or from yourself, if you don't even believe it's happening. Like that's what the major key is, because anyone who actually hears some of this information and goes and researches should be taken aback. Meaning should be somewhat startled, not in a scared way, but just wondering, well, wait a minute, how did I incarnate on the damn dimension with Azazel? But if you don't believe that is true, you never even ask yourself those questions. See, where I'm at in this spiritual progress is I want to know every night, I do an intention in my mind to know what got me here. That's the only intention I have. So show me the timeline for myself. I don't want to see anyone else's. Just show me what I did to arrive here in this level where evil triumphs, where the crying, screaming baby and the bombs and the missiles take place. So what is on the dimension perpetuating this? So that's why so many people are protected, because they're protecting God. They're protecting the same being that's causing the problem. When you look in, that's why I made the quote, maybe it's the God. You look at the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews, it's exactly the same. They're worshiping the same God. One under the symbol of the pentagram, the other one under the more ancient symbol, which is the hexagram, or the six-pointed star. And then from that point, you got these two worlds in the conflict. But meanwhile, Team 5 or Team 6 are sitting back laughing. As the humans go into conflict like toy soldiers and generate what kind of energy? See, we have to see what kind of energy is generated to understand who's perpetuating the problem. Because you can't eat, as a physical being, you need food, physical food. As an ethereal being, you need ethereal food. But just as there's food, different kinds of food on this planet, there's different kinds of foods in the astral plane. So a dank, dark being needs to eat fear. in desolation and scarcity. So we'll perpetuate those situations, at least in the mind of the individuals, in order to siphon that energy off of them. And this, of course, is again what you're dealing with. How do people explain this in Samaria? Because you're talking about desert tribes that had a close encounter with, these sandstorms and things that they always identified as being actual spirits themselves. They said that the spirit would form its face out of sand and then disappear, and it caused all sorts of problems with the cattle and livestock. So they had to figure out, well, what are these things? Of course, in Arabic, this comes under the term jinn. But when you research it deeply and you go into Chaldea, which is the foundation to a great deal of this magical system, they say that it is these beings, just like the Setian monster, which I had a picture up earlier, the Setian creature, who roam the desert at night. They're nighttime carnivores, but very large. Some of these beings were as large as dinosaurs. And then they died, and they remained here on Earth. Now, this is shrouded in the mystery of why, again, the entity of Azazel is they say, chained in the center of the Earth. Because any time you cannot ascend, then you remain here. This is not a big riddle, but still realize that when something can ascend, then it just has to stay where it is and set up its kingdom there. And so this is why in our world, because they're slightly out of the visual frequency, especially if we're on a low vibration. When you're on a higher vibratory frequency, it just means you know, you're in the know. You can see through all your eyes. You can read and comprehend better. You have an actual second sight that allows you to see certain forms or at least perceive the energy. Sometimes it's not always an eye. The eye is one of the lower frequency things to use to actually see something. The ear sees better than the eye. Basically, our entire system of our senses is governed based on how high it is how high the sense organ is on our face. Because of course we have taste, we have smell, we have hearing, and we have sight all on our face, showing that the only thing that is really important about the human being, if you want to have its template, is the skull. And the rest of the parts of the body are replicated through things that are within the skull. So now you'll see why the skulls became so important, and even people carrying around the skulls or using the skulls as their symbol, because they're saying that they still are in possession of things that belong to their ancient ancestors. Now, how much more time are we working with, Curtis?
And we are back, family, with Brother Sevan. We humbly apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll proceed as best as we can. But please, brother, go ahead.
Okay, thanks a lot, Curtis. Okay, so yeah, again, we do apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll just, try to stay on top of those as best as possible. So, as we're going through this now, so let's kind of take it back from the top again, because that way it starts to become really clear. So again, now you have to see that this lunar symbolism, that there's a conjunction of the planets that you can actually identify as being active within this perpetuation of keeping sleep, meaning that there is actually a physical correspondence or an external correspondence to who would be the perpetuator of the situation, especially based on the astrological signs, which are basically the energies and how they emit from the external universe. So what we're talking about here is that what star worship is taking the essence, which is also called Tan, Leviathan or Satan, taking in the essence of a star. So what you really find is you find that the system that was left here and that people keep picking up is a planetary system, but idolizing mainly a few planets. So let's explain that. Venus, of course, as you see, plays a major component because it traces out this pentagram in the sky. And we'll just leave it at that before we get into all these Venus's correspondence. Sirius plays a major correspondence because, as you can see, that the system of Orion and also many of the pyramidal structures on the planet are lined up to that particular star. You can also see that Mars, which is generally the symbol of red, the red shield, the Rothschild, the red cross, the horned god, is also in the mix. So
the reason why I'm bringing this up is that people need to see right away that sometimes the exact same symbolism is associated with 3 or 4 planets, sometimes 5, showing that this is a network. Some of the planets, we're just going to use those terms now, some of the planets play more low-key roles. Just like some of the perpetuators of the situation are not in the spotlight at all. The main perpetuators of the situation are not in the spotlight at all. Now, the secret behind, I believe, this pentagram is that it opens up a gate between our planet and the planet Sirius. But in order for such gates to open, there needs to be a link between the individual and that portal. And this is where I started getting to the root of how we were getting drained of our energy. That our connection between gods and kings and things we believe to be helping and saving us creates or allows our shield in a certain area to go down. And then we plug into it based on how we feel about it and think about it. So let me just explain it. If I believe that, let's say, this Caleb is the truth, and I confide in that Caleb and I trust this Caleb, and then I bind myself to the Caleb, there becomes a rope or astral tunnel, we call these the tunnels of Set, that connects the person with the energy that they're now in conjunction or in a covenant with. So there has to be some symbol. People have to understand there has to be some type of symbol or mark that corresponds to who they are. So this mark of the beast thing is not just some Christian fallacy, but in fact the symbol, the knowledge of the symbol that would come that is a mark that the beast is around at least. Now, of course, again, if you look at the Queen of England's crest, you see the large crown underneath. The thing underneath is the beast. And the reason is Nanar Sin, who's also the moon, was known as the king of beasts and the lord of beasts. And the reason it was given that term is because it gave knowledge at some point of how to shepherd. The wisdom, as it's called. This character is also Hermes. That's why you see Hermes often with a dog. So it gave the wisdom of how to domesticate. So remember, this becomes very important for the people because this is how they're living. This goes beyond whether I like the God or whether I don't like the God or I like that system, I don't like that system. It's something of how they have to survive. So before we go into casting stones here, you'll realize that I'm just citing the situation. But it's important for us to know all this. That humanity has gone under the same domestication that a dog would go under. How you take a wolf and you turn a wolf into a dog, a poodle. How you take a lion, Ra, solar fire energy, and then douse it out and make it like a kitten. The idea of Samaria and Babylon is to take someone and place them in prison. Egypt was a prison. And the reason they say that if you survive, that you were in the crucible, of course, but if you survive, you will come out 1,000 times stronger. You were in the prism, though. That's why, of course, you look out at the desert, you see one huge prism. So when you shine light into a prism, you get 7 colors. There's 7 days of the week, 7 gods. But the 7 days of the week are not just planets, because Monday is a moon. So it shows you that there's an actual specific system. That's why if we want to see what's going on, look at the 7 days of the week, see what the planet says, the etymology behind the name of the planet, and then start tracing it back from there, and you'll find the archons. The archons, or the ark, are the ones who are managing the moon. The moon was known to be the ark or our archive, the place that holds our information or our ghost. So this is why there's this spooky connotation at times with the moon, especially the dark side of the moon, or where you can't see, something that's hidden. You can see only one side of the major fertility principle, meaning you're only seeing sex as one thing. Some people, of course, know the secret, which is the sexual energies are used in order to activate you, but if you cannot bring them and raise them properly and cultivate them properly, then you end up stuck here on the planet. So this is why the Nanar sin also became known as judgment, or the judge. See, when I'm highlighting this being to you, a lot of people are just looking for something to go into and to slice up. Even me, I was like, okay, I'm going to rid the world of this being. But they need to see that it's because of when we desire certain things, there is certain entities that are responsible for fulfilling those things. That's how a great part of this world attempts to become limitless. So, if you notice in the ancient cultures, they were already bringing up this energy. They already had a communication with the horn god that the witch still evokes in the magical circle. They understood the maze, which also is synonymous with corn, which is grain, but the enclosed gardens were a maze. Amazing. Meaning you could go in there and get lost. The god didn't because it came from the sky. Like if you come to a maze from the sky, you can land right in the center. But if you come to it from the left or the right, you're going to get lost in the maze. And this is also why there was a difference between those who walk across the surface in horizontal, those that were followers of Horus, versus those who were up and down. Either they worked serpent energies or bird-like energies. But of course, if you know anything about nature and biology, then you know that the bird and the serpent are synonymous. That the birds are evolved snakes. The scales became feathers. So this is also the difference in the deepness of understanding the symbolism of when a snake transmutes itself into a bird. So, or an emblem is shown of a bird snake as the tetracolateral. Now what we'll find also is that these archons took fleshly form, and that's why I showed in the beginning, that's why Akhenaten is looked up to highest in the secret societies, because Akhenaten wasn't real archon, a real Nephilim, not the fake Nephilim that they have running around here now. Wannabe Nephilim, NFL, actually is the correct Kabbalistic term for Nephilim. So you understand why these guys playing football are so big, why they're throwing around a Vistica pieces. 11 versus 11 on the field of a rectangle, which is a temple of Solomon, and how the crowd is pushing their energy and their belief into little Nephilim now. See, it sounds interesting, but it's serious, and it's a major thing. That's why the planet is called Sirius. They're the only ones that are not playing. Why everything else is smile now, cry later, they're constantly on this. They do not underestimate their opponent. It's a guard dog. That's why God backwards is dog. And so if you can imagine God dog, the canine, actually letting you go from the enclosed garden when it was told, just like the angel, the cherub, which is, again, a composite of a beast-type form, was told to spin around the garden and protect it with fire, meaning that keep bombarding the planet with light. That way, those will always look up to the light. Now, look at also in the text in the Bible. It also says that there is a scapegoat, because of course this is also known as the goat. The scapegoat absorbs all the sins, which is the moon absorbing the sins, the Kaaba absorbing the sins. Scapegoat absorbs all the sins of the people, takes on those sins, like Jesus or Jesus, the strong man Lord, as he's called, absorbs all the sins of the people, and then eats them. Remember I told you, spiritual beings need to get certain kind of energy. They need you to sign that over to them. Hey, sign your sins over here. We can eat them. But it's making, but again, look at the whole act. We were already told that no one can die for what you do. No one can pay for what you do. You can't go and do something crazy and then not rectify that yourself and then put it on someone else to do it. It doesn't work that way. You have to clear it up at a certain time. If it's not this life, then it'll be the next one or the next one. But in the end of this life, they will be laughing at you if you didn't clear it up. Meaning that there is an accuser there that says, oh no, you gave the sins to me. And that's why the priest was told to put his hands on the horn, which is the two parts of the pentagram, put his horns on Azazel and release him into the forest. Again, forest god. Druids. Because what the trees allowed man to do, and woman, was open up their pineal gland. That's why the tree was suggested, as they say, by the serpent, who is Azazel. Hey, eat this tree. Open up, you see like God. Good and evil. And once they ate it, they knew. Their eyes were open. So what it's saying is that, now look, this anyway, spirituality and opening of their eyes is nothing to be playing around with. Let alone if a fallen angel happens to be around when you do it. So you can see how, that's why I said the first spiritual experience that mankind had left us afraid of spirits because of possession. When the tree, or which is symbolized as an apple, a pentagram, opened, they ate it, and it opened, then the snake went in to Eve. You see? So it's talking about, then of course once it went in, it birthed Cain, which is the real story, that the Eve or the night or the Lilith, the Mary, which is the dark virgin, the seed, was seeded by one of the fallen angels and started to bring forth life. So people think that it's a game, but they're still running around here dying and not knowing what happens next. We take sides and we jump on sides, but how much have we really learned? Like when you jump on the side of a God, I'm with Allah, I'm with Yahweh, or Yahweh, or whatever you're going to call it next, how much have you really learned? I'm with Buddha, I'm with Lama, or Lamb. How much have you really gained? Did you really expand? Or did you do the same thing that we do with people that we aspire or beings that we aspire to be like, but we don't know how to become that ourselves? Someone riding around in a chariot with some entourage and mystics and girls and dancers and belly dancers and like you see Xerxes on 300, some gold in there. And aspiring to be that, never realizing we're going to miss the mark like that. Meaning that the pan means to miss the mark. It means to actually miss where your connection is, or your point of connection. Now look at how all the words are twisted together. Because when you use one word, it becomes synonymous with another one. Synonymous. I guess that's Nanar Sin again, being anonymous. You see, all of the words on is worshipped in Heliopolis. Heliopolis is the city of the sun. So what is the sun's name then? Helio. Who is Helio? Oh, that's hell. They're Helens. Hell is hot. Hell is a fire god. So to them, it means so much more than what it means to us. It means the world to them. Meaning that this knowledge, it's important that they keep theirs updated and in complete knowledge of the fluidity of information. Speaking the languages of fire, which is the Tamil and the Sanskrit. Languages that you see have more of a curvature to them as the tongues of the flame as you see with Arabic. They keep this communication going on, but where has it gotten them? Who is going to be the one that actually absorbs all the information and then moves into the solution? See, they say a lamb or a llama on the path is a hold on the path, meaning that if you start to sit under another and imagine that other person is supposed to guide you somewhere, then you're basically on a timeout on your own spiritual path. So that's why when you jump into the spiritual teachings, you have to know how to instruct, and you instruct from a level of an individual doing this themselves. You don't take any responsibility, meaning that you don't tell them, hey, if you follow me, then I can take you to where you need to go. Right off the bat, you're now tethering yourself to them. What we're telling people, especially with the faction of the resistance, is that all the knowledge and the information that is necessary to get you where you need to go is here. We're talking about it. But what you choose to do, which is the biggest thing also, Chris, what people choose to actually do once the conversation is over is the only thing that counts. See, I'm not talking about the out.
All right, family, once again, we apologize, but we are back with Brother Sevan. Please continue.
Okay. I did want to let them know, Curtis, that I guess that we will be ending up we'll be ending the show a little bit early today, that we've been notified that maybe it's possible that our problems are connected to server issues with Blog Talk Radio. But we're just going to go for, I guess they said 20 to 30 minutes before they're going to need to go into some type of repair on their side. But okay, so I just want to finish off with the closing ideas here for people to realize, again, the religions. I just want to notify people that the religions of this world are just as necessary to the foundation of this world as amoeba. So at times when you see religions and you get very upset, especially when you understand the origins, just understand that it's a necessary structure to create this entire illusion. So what happens also is us seeing that structure, we see that also that other planets very well may contain life because, first of all, we talked about last week, anywhere light reaches, then there's going to be life. But the fact is that when you come into feeding planets, like I talked about in the beginning of this message, the original beings that came and feed the planets, when you go into another planet, the reason why this terminology of an enclosed garden and all this stuff is used is because when you move into a planet that has an environment that cannot host certain kinds of life, the first thing you do is you land in the center of that planet, and then you set up an enclosure or an enclosed bubble or garden, and then you allow the forms or seeds of life that you brought with you in the ark to actually begin to germinate until they begin to expand the bubble that life actually exists, that the life is actually existing in. So this is why also our planet is expanding, because as the souls here become more mature and start to expand more, then the planet actually becomes larger and our consciousness, our collective consciousness becomes larger. So a lot of this information that is coming out now is just to make us aware completely of some of the oaths, past rituals and things that are taking place behind doors or even behind gates in order for the full, let's say, prophecy to be realized, that what is done in the dark will eventually come to the light, meaning that what is happening in these cabals where clearly individuals are joining, individuals are practicing, they're using knowledge, they're using symbolism that they think is a secret, that those here now that know those secrets and can actually disclose. Likewise, I want to let people know that there's a lot of individuals that have walked in through paths in their past, and those paths have been a little rough, and at times they're asking themselves, why are they being designated to start getting massive levels of information of awakening? And it's because how the universe handles things. When it's time to rectify or balance out a situation, then those that are familiar with the situation will be used to do it. So in essence, is to understand from another level, if you have an array of different kind of spiritual beings, you send the one that is specific for a situation. Because we're dealing with malevolent forces here on the planet, then beings that know how to deal with malevolent forces will be dealing with it. So within people that are expanding with the knowledge now, especially this kind of knowledge, they'll come to a realization after a while that the reason why they're being briefed about this kind of information is that we're actually in the period of transition where mankind, humanity, animals, the whole living life of our planet, which even is deep in the ocean, is going to go into the level of no limitations, or at least less limitations. Because remember, our limitations still are based upon how much we're capable of doing. And just as the magnificent beings that we are, we have to really see, and I'm getting some feedback, but we have to see that we have this ability to really become anything. And all of what I've explained today about the kings using the knowledge and taking the trees and then, enslaving people, taking belief systems and spiritual systems and altering them and putting their name in it besides just leaving it open and saying what you created, that our original fathers and mothers that took care of us, as them passing into other dimensions and passing into other expanses, left us in care of brothers and sisters who did not always fulfill their responsibilities, that we've also been sold to other kings that basically do not come directly from our lineage but still do connect to us on the overall scale. Also realizing how to get to that, meaning how to get to the apex point of yourself through the understanding. Still seeing a lot of this information, especially on occult knowledge, being something that is taking place inside of us before it ever took place in the physical reality. Seeing also the control point is spirituality. Things take place in the spiritual world before they do in the physical. So if you're ever looking to prevent something, then you need to work with the spiritual side of yourself more than the physical side. Also to see that the gods and the lords, which are real live energies, at least acting out through real live people, do not follow these religious rules and guidelines. And so, because the guidelines and rules are meant in many cases to limit the person. If a person's having dark thoughts, they need to address those thoughts to clear those thoughts, meaning that it needs to be handled in the proper way. But in reality, if the religious structure is telling the person you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and the person's suppressing all of that, but it's still there, then it still puts them in a situation of being a lower frequency being, meaning that when you have not forgiven yourself and you stay in this level of guilt and wanting to be forgiven. See, notice how with just the whole God dynamic, people are still waiting to get approved. Dealing with this God is like dealing with a credit loan and just waiting all day for it to get approved. People don't know in these religious structures whether, quote unquote, God is really satisfied with them or not. So what this equals is, of course, for those who follow these kind of systems, a very low morale. The person believes that God cannot help them or that they will receive no help or they're doing something wrong. These are low frequency. So that's, of course, why the emancipation with just understanding the knowledge, the depth level of being able to apply the knowledge to yourself, not being a child where you know certain things that you shouldn't be involved in certain things, you choose to do that anyway. Because what that does is, of course, it links you to real forces. These beings are not phantoms in the sense that they are not interacting on this world. You can see their actions all the time, especially within religious fervence when it leads to death and killing. And that you notice that Syria is already in a conflict right now, and of course Syria is the as below correspondence to Sirius. So expect for certain things to occur at the end of this year that are going to wholly determine the trajectory of our planet in the future. Still see that the RI, or the ones that are the go-betweens between us and our true power, are still here on the planet. They generally use a pentagram or a six-pointed star, but they are underlings. They have, again, set themselves up to be go-betweens between us and an energy that they can't even define themselves. Also understand there's a Scythian. This is also what Saturn is all about, the Scythian or axe god running around chopping down people's family trees or spiritual connections with especially their Innerverse or the planetary system that exists within them. So still be very aware that you need to stay on your guard. Also understand that the seeds that you put into life, especially into fertility in the fertile field, are your responsibility. And if you choose to bring those seeds in at some point, that you will be eating from it, whether it's positive or negative, meaning that even if you have a child and that child you raise horribly, then you're going to deal with that horrible child. Likewise, if you have an intelligent child or you raise a child intelligent, you're going to deal with that. So anything that we do in life, we have to always see that whatever we put out is going to come back. We want the system to work like that. Some people are afraid of that, but that can work in your favor, because if you do what you're supposed to be doing, then you can guarantee already that your storehouse will be full. So if you plant and you put your seeds and you dig them deeply and you put the time and attention necessary in their fertilizing your soul, then you can always guarantee that you'll be able to eat from your soul, not from others' souls. And to understand the difference. So, I mean, I'm not sure how much more that we want to go into this, especially since we did get that notification, brother. Does anyone have any questions? I guess, you know.
Oh, yes, we do have two questions from our two callers on the switchboard, so we're going to pause and take a question or two. We have our first caller from, let's see, the 678 area code. Caller, if you're there, please state your name and where you're calling from. Ooh, I guess they're just listening. I don't blame them. We'll go on to our next caller. We have a caller from the 336 area code. Caller, if you're there, please state your name and where you're calling from.
Wholeness never pieces. What's going on, Sevan? This is Muhammad.
Wholeness, brother. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you, too. Man, well, I could go with like 1,000 questions, but I got an idea. Maybe you could just build upon it. I was thinking about the chakras and the planets, and if I know that, they correspond to one another, but I was also thinking about, like, how long this has been going on, and as far as the Earth being at a tilt, 24 degrees, what is going to take that to be corrected, and, like, how long has it been this way? And I just was wondering if you could build upon that a little bit.
For sure. Okay, so to see the planetary energies and the chakras is to also see that each planet has all planets have a side, like planet Earth, nighttime and a daytime. So there is a positive connotation behind it, right side up. Down and position. And so this is basically an inversion. So everything that deals with inverted or being exactly backwards to what you're supposed to be corresponds to locked chakras. Now, it's also automatic then to realize that we are on a world that is 23 degrees off tilt. It's because our chakra center is 23 degrees off tilt. If you put anything off tilt, is distortion. You're not going to be able to see it for what it really is. So if we put ourselves back into harmony, then what happens is that we actually realize another planet. And it's here. We're standing on it. We just see it a different way. None of it appears as it did before. And that's why they call it like an awakening, because you don't see it as you did before.
Okay. So, like, if I know how, the planet will keep going on even if we weren't here. But as far as the solar system and the universe corresponding to the body, is that how, like, we've been trapped here in a way? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, as far as the body is concerned, so, we're really spirits, our soul, but that's connected to the sun. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how are we, if we weren't here, how would the planets still be if we weren't? I'm just trying to figure that all out a little bit.
Remember, you're dealing with several individual groups of consciousness, so even if you're not in this state of consciousness, there would be still billions of entities, trillions of entities that are still within this consciousness. So we'll find many universes constructed in different ways, 5 sense beings, 6 sense beings, 7 sense beings, and if those become the primary form of how the being. What he's saying is that with Earth, have us in a specific frequency. What we're really expanding into the actual frequency. So it's more how.
Well, I believe he's having some microphone problems again. Brother, are you?
Yeah, I'm still here, but Sevan is kind of breaking up a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that's sorry.
Yes, we have you back now.
That's what I was saying is that you have to realize that there are still an infinite amount of beings that are in this particular system. When you go into other systems, you will not probably find the same level of chakra centers. You won't find the same energies being used, the same light or the same emission from the light being used. So all those things will vary. So what happens is that if we're really concerned about how physical reality is going to exist without us, then it's almost like we're saying that the world can't exist without us. You see what I mean? So what really happens is that can we exist without the world? And that's where this next dynamic comes in, because we'll see that we believe in our heart at times that we will really go somewhere else that we dictate where we're going to go. Meaning that that's the actual thing you would have to do before you can fully believe that you're going to transcend into a higher level. So this is what we have to be up for the task for, is actually expanding into what a lot of what we're talking about. So, I'm not sure if I just lost the meaning of the question entirely, but again, a lot of this is already functioning and has been functioning for billions of years. And what generally happens is, especially with many of the souls and many of the templates, is that when they don't choose to expand, then they're often absorbed back into the original primal materia, or basically the essence of what creates all of this, and then they're pushed out again, but still now containing the actual experiences of what they recently went through before. So they'll still expand the next time regardless. And so all experience, remember, every experience that the soul is having, whether we're calling it positive or negative, the soul is gaining that experience. So it's just about whether, again, we're going to keep sticking our hands into the fire and not really understand what these elements are really used for. And so that's really becomes a challenge. Control chakras is very similar to actually taming what's beast. And this is where some of the bravest men have embarked to try to contain themselves and contain the energies within. Some failed at that mission. Some have gotten really close to doing it and then fell towards the completion, which is even more dangerous. So what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with an immense level of power, but also because the situation we're experiencing in the world today needs nothing short of immense level of power in order to correct it and to put it in the right area. So if you can see the entity today that I spoke of, which is Azel, as inverted, then you can also see when the balance is restored, how it means the exact opposite of what that entity or what the king would be doing now. So this disconnection from the people and the stars won't exist here in a moment. The disconnection between the people and their fathers or their mothers and their nurses won't be here in a moment. And so that's also how we can catch a very good vision of exactly what things are going to be like next. And that's what we have to remember, that when you see something you know is out of balance, for you to put it back into balance with the senses that you've been given. And that's why you sit as a lord or a master over your body, not over other people's bodies. And so that's, where you can actually go in there and put everything back under control. Remember, the only taming then, to make this very clear, what you see is external magic was supposed to be done internally. Because what affects other people, what internal magic does affects you. And that's the only way that, then it's even given a different term. It's not even given the term magic. Magic is the root to manifesting material things. That's why it's ma, or material, is in front of that. So, this is starting to realize what we've done in life and what the situations it's caused, and then rectifying those situations.
Definitely, that helps. I'm definitely going to have to listen to this again because you're breaking up, but I appreciate everything, and I'm going to keep expanding and doing what I need to do on my end.
Okay. Again, I do apologize for the connection issues. I definitely have to work on that and get that ironed out. I'm not sure where it's actually coming from. We did a lot of tests a few days ago, so maybe it's just something with Blog Talk Radio servers. So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling in, caller. Excellent commentary. Peace to you, brother.
Thank you, Curtis.
You're welcome, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Okay, Brother Sevan, we have to start winding down, unfortunately. But like I said, hey, keep your notes available because I'm already planning your next visit. But take some time to share with us any information that, anything you have coming up, and what everyone can look forward to, and your websites, any information you want to share with us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, right now we're launching the AstroQuest platform. Pertinent thing that we have going on now. It's a brand new way of bringing out information I would hope 5, but it all depends on what our real connection issues are. And I just noticed we will be able to do a nice show together, Curtis, on one of the other lines that actually these calls a little bit better. That's why I was having a little bit of problem on the BTR end a little bit, but I would love for people to tune into that at some point of me showing all the images related to this. Of course, I planned the show to be this way, so I was a little lost for a couple moments because of not having the right data to source images. So I want to say that we're really working on a way to prepare this so that it's a lot more clear to individuals so they can see the entire process of their expansion. So that's really the next thing for us is, of course, the AstroQuest. For the resistance site is always available. That's actually astroquest.com or resistancen.com. So that's really all we're doing right now. And I just say thank you again for everyone supporting and getting the information and passing it along to others. There's been a massive amount of information discovered this month, and we placed that information on the site. Some books like the and another document that's called Rosicrucian Red Crows, Red and Red Cross, meaning it's going to give you the definitions of what that means in those kings. So tell people to take information if they can. And other than that, I want to say thanks a lot again, Curtis, for hosting the call. I do.
Not a problem, brother. These things happen, but nevertheless, we still got some very powerful information. Thank you so much, brother. It's always powerful. It's always pleasurable. And like I said, keep your notes handy because I'm already planning your next visit. Peace and love to you, brother.
All right, Curtis.
Peace.
What this has created is an all-out state of being lost because we don't know how to identify our anchor point. So the first thing I want to say is that through this conversation, I want to work the best that I can to stay into the balance. It can get a little dualistic during the conversation because there are clearly forces that are perpetuating a lot of chaos that is harming us and causing a lot of pain for us. And that pain, of course, is then a person generally handles pain by repaying the individual who inflicts the pain with pain back. And this is called fire fighting fire. So what happens at times now is that our chakra system, if you want to know the state that it's been in, it's basically burned up. Our DNA was put into overdrive in duality, which was very dangerous for us. So today we want to clear up this duality so that it's very simple for people. If you're on a dual plane in a binary, you want to go to the next expanse. You need to move out of duality. So tonight, of course, we're going to discuss what goes on in the dualistic plane, like I would say, known as Jacob and Boaz, the feet of the cosmic body and the conflict going on between left and right. But remember that you're on a planet that its planetary symbol is a cross. In addition to that, you're on a planet where there's a day and a night. You're not on a planet where there's just day. So this day and the night dualistic thing that goes on Earth allows there to be beings on the dimension that are exactly opposite to each other. And beings in meeting together come into conflict, and this generates. And some people say, well, what is generating? It's generating energy. So what I want to let people know tonight is that you can tune into a website that we have going now that's going to be showing the images related to this conversation. And that website is godgenes.com. That's GODGENES.com, godgenes.com. If you're having a hard time with that, you can go to rabmag.com. That's RABMAG.com. And all you're going to get there is you're going to get a screen that's actually showing you, me, here in the AstroQuest studio, of course with AstroQuest equipment, and ready to take this thing to a level where you can actually understand it. Because what I see is happening more than anything is this type of information, it was even known as heresy to have this kind of information, first of all. The spiritual knowledge was always kept a secret. Like they didn't let you into the rituals and into the temple. You would desecrate it according to them. They didn't let people that weren't involved in the priesthood see or touch things related to the priesthood and the essence of how to control the planet Now remember, controlling the planet is also synonymous with controlling yourself. And we're talking about to the greatest degrees of our potential, being able to have full reign over doing what you're really calibrated to do. So this knowledge is not something that they've been passing to individuals freely over history. And in fact, the first ones to have possession of this particular knowledge, which still to us become our parents, were clearly building worlds all the time. And so this is what, if you want to know what is the pursuit of this knowledge and why do so many people want this knowledge and information, and it's because this knowledge and information gives you the opportunity to gain our expansion. And this is, of course, these last 2 months of the year, and that's why a lot of the strongest holidays are centered around this time, because the level of energy that's open during these times is massive. And so we have this opportunity to begin to tap into ourselves fully. That's really what the lineup is. Like inside of yourself, you come into this major expansion based on which is really based on your ascension. It's based on you getting to the next level of your experience. Of course, there are many people who've come and gone from Earth, many different kind of beings that have come and gone from Earth. And of course, we're going to look a lot into that today. But the listener really needs to know you need to look into yourself more. We can focus a lot on what's going on in the external reality, and if we know how to do introspection, then we can see how that's inside of us. But if for some reason we haven't made it to that point and we think that all these external energies are not somewhere resident inside us, then it can be an extremely dualistic, uncomfortable experience on the planet. And so what we really want to do for people today is to put them into a land of major comfort, meaning that it's something that happens internally, but an actual harmony that exists within themselves or balance. We want to get people to that position. So I want people to remember this is a cult network. Of course, Curtis can definitely tell you that there's been a massive level of individuals who've been on this network and who have brought some of the highest levels of knowledge. So because we're in the occult arena, I intend to live up to all the expectations that have been given and put on me and deliver a massive message about this expansive, not only expansive awakening, but also the origins of much of what we believe to be God. And I know that's a major statement. A lot of people would be uncomfortable with that statement right off the bat. The history of God is this man could actually determine God's working as we feel now about how God's elevated state is. But in reality, of course, we're not just gods, we're actually everything. And we're in the level of coming into total realization of that. But until then, we stay with looking up to and duplicating other things besides fully budding or flowering within ourselves. And that is something that's been trained over time. Humans have been domesticated just like the animals. The chakra system of the human being is generally powered down or inverted, just like the animals. If you can imagine, a cow also has a pineal gland, so what would an activated pineal gland cow be like? People never really go that next level with their thoughts, especially some of these individuals who've already gone into spiritual experiences using substances that come from trees. So this gets us into a major question about who's running Earth, what's going to happen in the future, where do we come from, major questions, excuse me. But what I see also is sometimes we don't know how to ask the right questions. And so thus we get answers that definitely give us a certain level of expansion for that moment, but overall they don't get us to where we need to go. And so I think that's because our understanding of history and her, as I like to call it, there's obviously a genderization of the word history. But when you can get history and her story, and then you can put the two together and make them whole, then this would, in all scientific methods and in all methods of knowledge, allow you to complete your circle. It would actually correct your DNA. Basically, the information that is necessary to turn a complete will and thought, you haven't been provided with. So there's pieces missing in your wheel of time or your cog of time.
Greetings, beloved family, and thank you all once again for being here with us this evening on Occult Science Radio. I am Curtis Davis, a.k.a. The Illuminated One, and tonight we have back with us another Illuminated One. If you were here last week, this brother's lecture, to this day, people are still buzzing about that lecture. Okay, that's why everyone showed up tonight, because they want to hear this divine brother again. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm talking about Brother Sevan. Believe me, this brother is a powerhouse. And every time I bring him on the show, I sit back and I listen and learn, just like everyone else. So I'm going to get started by thanking our sponsor, TON, the Occult Network. That's www.theoccultnetwork.com. And there you will find information that is definitely designed to unlock your consciousness. And the Occult Network also has a Facebook page, also has a YouTube page and a Twitter page. And if you want to keep up with what's going on Occult Science Radio as well, you can find me on Facebook, Curtis Illuminated One Davis. So please come by, become a friend of mine on Facebook, join the Occult Network Facebook page, and also subscribe to us on YouTube and join us on Twitter. And don't forget, when you go to theoccultnetwork.com, click on the events link, and there you will find information about the upcoming Free Your Mind Conference 2, scheduled for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on April 25th, 26th, and 27th. And I will be a featured speaker at that conference, among other powerful speakers, and I'm truly honored to be there, to be among such great minds. So, family, if you want to call in with a question or a comment, please dial 646-649-1987. That's 646-649-1987. And if you have a question or a comment, please press number 1 on your keypad so we can get you on the switchboard and take your wonderful questions and comments. Okay, that's enough of me talking. It's time to welcome back Brother Sevan. Peace, brother. Welcome back.
Holmes, brother, how am I coming through over there? It's just amazing to once again be broadcasting with you. I mean, wow. How you been?
Doing well, doing well. I mean, we're still buzzing from your appearance last week. And tonight we're going to have also a very powerful topic as well, the history of God. And from there, you do the talking from here, brother.
Okay, brother, okay. I just wanted to definitely say wholeness to everyone. And it's definitely an amazing time to be delivering the message. Of course, we're here around the end of 2012. A lot of people are expecting some major expansion, and they're wondering where it's at. And so, of course, excuse me for the background noise, my goal is 100% to get people to that expansion right before what I would say is just a time in history where we just have this major ability to create afterlife, a conscious afterlife. And this becomes very important, especially for individuals who are thinking about what happens after you die. Individuals who have a lot of resources and a lot of capability. But they still have that one limitation, which is that at some point they have to pass away. You see it happen all around you. So all of the greatest men and women throughout history sought the answer to that question. Many of them found it. Many of them were not able to come back and deliver that information to you. Many of them believe that it is your duty to find this information. You know, this planet is more like a quest where you must find the reason and purpose that you live in. But I think also that many people, in seeking and going through the internet and finding different individuals that have different levels of information, have found that and have sought out to find that, and that's why they're here today. So I definitely want to say thank you to TON Network. Curtis, you know, he's been up for a long time. That's just what they say is a quarter horse runs only a short period of time. But one of those full-bred horses runs for a long time. And if you look at the network's been running for so long, the strength of what is necessary to just keep giving up every day and tuning in, finding new people to get on there, just to awaken people is really a massive task, but one that has a great reward. So I can definitely, and you'll see by the end of this conversation, for those that have stored up really good seeds, are they ready to really see the harvest? And what people will understand also with this conversation is even what seeds and harvesting and planting and ecosystems is really all about, and exactly how precious that information is. So while we would want to attain it sometimes, we also have to see that because of its the level of its the respect that goes with it and the level of ability that goes with it, it oftentimes eludes those who are shrouded in darkness. Now, of course, today we have to highlight both components. So there will be a major chunk of this program that has a lot to do with the malevolent forces. There will be another chunk of this program that has to do with the solution. And the major part of the program is to just remember that it's all within. All of what I'm explaining to you is just what is taking place on this planet. What's going on inside of you is so much more expansive. So where I start here, because I've been going through, since we installed the new platform, I've been going through a lot of information as far as pictures, because now I have to line up all the pictures to put into this device so that it can show people the images in real time, which is what I'm doing now. And I've been going through images collected for 5 years. Of course, with the expansion of knowledge that I have now, it's totally different when looking back at something that you collected maybe 4 years ago and then understanding the real meaning of it. So this has also allowed me to put this entire thing in somewhat of a chronological order within my mind. Being able to actually just go through segments of time and just check in like you're getting off of a time machine and just peek your head out the door and see, oh, who's ruler? Just yell to someone, who's the ruler? And then they tell you something, you get back to the time machine, and then you hit the next knob. Because what's happening is that as you go back through history, all you'll see is a constant back and forth volleying between forces that are attempting to rule the world or training Tiamat. So it's important that we realize right off the bat, because I'm also going to have to etymologically explain the word God, but to understand right off the bat that gods work based on how many people believe in them. So it's very similar to politics. So if a God can do certain things and get people to believe in him or her, then this generates a level of energy within itself. So let us get right into this. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change out a reel here. And I'm going to make that reel loopable, as I call it, just so that it keeps running over and over again. Because as you look through the images that are being played, you'll start to see basically a connection. As I talk, you'll start to see it yourself that, wait a minute, something's actually going on. And that's the point that we want to get to today, because remember, any major awakening within you is actually activating your DNA. Many people desire to activate the DNA. So we have to see that the major awakening is going to come when you have the information, because the information is DNA. So let us go into this. Today I'll show you that the term God is synonymous with king. It has become synonymous with the word Cain and synonymous with the word Cohen, which means priest. And this is why. If you use the word God, it automatically puts you under a Celtic, Druidic, or Gothic system of knowledge. And you would need to go into their language to fully define what the word means when you pronounce it, because it belongs to their language. But you'll find that you don't have to look far, because the correspondence to the word God is actually within the Hebrew correspondence to the word Yod. As you can see, it's basically the same. In English, the G, the Y, the I, and the J are all interchangeable. And you can find this out by just writing some words that contain those letters, and then start switching out the letters. And you'll see that these letters are interchangeable. So right off the bat, you have to realize that people that are even using the name God that don't understand its interpretation, the joke would be on them anyway. Because when you use a vibration and then determine that that vibration is your highest vibration, meaning what you think is the highest thing, and when you say it, you send a signal to that, you ping that. How you experience life is going to be based on that. Your idea of what the Most High is shapes, molds, and fashions you. So where we're at with this is that we're now starting to see that when we look into the period of time that we've had here on Earth, and the individuals that have been here on Earth, if we want to look at our immediate segment, we have to say who was the original human template that was here. And here's why I use the word template. It's a template because you keep getting a continuous replication of the same thing. And this is 2 arms, 2 legs ahead. 2 arms, 2 legs ahead.